Australian billionaire promises prosperity to First Nations. The owner of the company that now holds the largest mining stake in the Ring of Fire in northwestern Ontario has a controversial business reputation with Indigenous people in Australia. Andrew Forrest is a billionaire mining mogul who owns Wyloo Metals. In April, Wyloo took over Norrent Resources' stake in the Ring of Fire region in a $600 million deal that took the previously publicly traded Norrent private. The Ring of Fire region holds nickel, copper, platinum and palladium deposits in the James Bay lowlands, about 500 kilometers north of Thunder Bay. Andrew Forrest founded Fortescue Metals Group, FMG, and developed it into one of Australia's top iron ore producers. Supporters say his success includes championing Indigenous employment, training and entrepreneurship. But others say Fortescue's record with Indigenous people in Australia includes a patronising and divisive approach to communal land rights. In 1992, Australia began recognising native title after a landmark court decision. Since the decision, Indigenous groups in Australia have been applying to the federal court to have their title recognised. Mining companies are required to negotiate with native title-holding corporations or claimants before proceeding with development. However, if talks don't lead to a deal, the National Native Title Tribunal can, and usually does, agree to issue a mining lease anyway, according to a public policy professor and negotiator, Kieran O'Fetchiale. An Indigenous Australian group that negotiated with Fortescue in the late 2000s said the company divided their community. The Yindjibarndi Aboriginal Corporation of Western Australia rejected several deals from Fortescue, including one worth about almost $4 million per year, to set up a mine on Yindjibarndi land. An Australian analyst, Paul Cleary, calculated the offer to be just 0.04% of the actual value of the resources at 2011 prices. The Yindjibarndi reminded Fortescue of the value of their connection to the land and told the company that they would be worse off if they accepted the deal. The mine was established anyway. The company did not pay royalties to the Yindjibarndi Aboriginal Corporation in trust for the community, but it did give business contracts to a breakaway group of Yindjibarndi who supported Fortescue's deal. In 2015, the Federal Court of Australia found that Fortescue had secretly helped to fund a breakaway group to organise the ouster of the leadership of the Yindjibarndi Aboriginal Corporation as the native title holder for the community and replaced the leadership with members of their own breakaway group to create a leadership favourable to Fortescue. The Yindjibarndi won their exclusive possession case in 2017. In 2020, the High Court of Australia refused to hear Fortescue's appeal, paving the way for a compensation claim against the company. Also in 2020, another community that signed an agreement with Fortescue, back in 2009, told a parliamentary committee that they were unsatisfied with the company's approach to heritage site protection. Payments withheld? FMG has been withholding our royalty payments, an amount of $1.9 million, since February 2020 because we have simply asked for information about their plans for some mining leases they have applied for. These mining lease areas contain numerous sacred sites, said Jocelyn Hicks, director of the Wintawari Guruma Aboriginal Corporation. When asked by CBC News how local First Nations could trust the company with respecting important sites, Fortescue stated that the company has worked closely and transparently with native title partners to protect and avoid almost 6,000 heritage places with the primary objective of avoidance of heritage places of cultural significance. Fortescue cited its history of support for Indigenous employment and entrepreneurship. The company says it is one of Australia's largest employers of Indigenous people. Wyloo Metals has promised to award $100 million in contracts to Indigenous businesses as part of its Ring of Fire operations and to open a training centre that guarantees jobs to Indigenous people upon completion of training. Chief Apanichum of Martin Falls, an Anishnaabe First Nation in northern Ontario that is a proponent of a road project connecting to the Ring of Fire, wants to see prosperity in his own community. I see a lot of unemployed First Nations youth in our communities with the future looking bleak. And that's one way to reach reconciliation, economic reconciliation, Chief Apanichum said. But Chief Muniz of Neskantaga First Nation, one of 4 First Nations that have declared a moratorium on development in the region until certain conditions are met, said he has heard bits and pieces about Fortescue's treatment of Indigenous people in Australia and has concerns about it. If the company is going to just move forward with development without the consent of our people, that's going to be an issue, he said, adding his only contact with Wailu was at a group meeting of Matawa chiefs in March. There has to be a way to make sure that our people are the ones that determine what's going to happen, and that's not happening right now, Chief Muniz said.